There is the Mueller hearings to consider tomorrow. Robert Mueller expected to testify to two different House committees. Everyone says it really is depending on what they can get him to say beyond just the 438-page report itself that he said he will be limited to and only talking about. Former Republican Congressman Bob Barr on that. You might remember the congressman was there during the Clinton impeachment proceedings. Congressman, good to have you.
Always good to be with you, Neil. Thank you.
You know, things always come up in hearings that weren't planned or weren't necessarily telegraphed. That could be the same case here. What are you looking for?
Well, what I'd be looking for is to see whether or not Mueller sticks to his guns and says nothing beyond the report itself that was issued many weeks ago. If he does say nothing, then the whole democratic exercise here of having him come forward will be shown very clearly to not be about substance, but to be about politics, pure and simple. If, on the other hand, he does say something in addition to what was in his report, then he's going to be shown to be somebody who is not believable, so he loses credibility. So either way, either the Democrats lose credibility or he does. So the winner in all this, I guess, if there is a winner, will be the Republicans, because they don't really have a dog in the fight. And if he says something, they can attack him. If he doesn't say something, they can attack the Democrats.
You know, the Justice Department has already kind of put out a warning for Mueller to stay within the boundaries of the report. That wasn't accidental the day before his appearance. What do you make of that?
I think it's very timely and very important. What the Department of Justice told Mr. Mueller is that insofar as the report itself included information on ongoing investigations, it also referenced executive privilege material. Therefore, you are not, pursuant to your obligation as a federal prosecutor, authorized to go beyond that. If Mr. Mueller is as straight-laced as his supporters like to say he is, he ought to heed that.
Did you have the actual report to go on when your hearings on Bill Clinton started?
We had the entire Starr report, not only the public report that Judge Starr sent to the Congress, but all of the background material, which took up file after file after file, which I and a number of other Republicans on the Judiciary Committee looked at, but nobody else did.
Now, the reason I mention it, Congressman, is a lot of people have not read this report, particularly most Americans. So a lot of this will be news to them that comes out, or revelations that come out about obstruction or something that is deemed, breaking the law in some people's eyes, just a revelation to others. Do you think that this risks hurting the president as far as dinging him in the polls, or that revelations come up? They're not necessarily impeachable, but they're embarrassing to the point he dropped something.
I don't think this is going to harm the president at all, unless Mr. Mueller comes up with some bombshell, which is highly unlikely and would be highly unethical if he did. But no, the president isn't going to be harmed by this. The Democrats are pursuing this for political reasons. If Mueller goes up there and says, "Oh, excuse me, it's 6 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock," then that will become, for the Democrats, big news, and it will justify in their eyes moving forward with another impeachment exercise.
And much like yours didn't go anywhere in the United States Senate, do you think the same would happen here if it even got that far?
It clearly would not go anywhere in the Senate. And as a matter of fact, the entire environment in which impeachment is now being considered and the term thrown about, it doesn't even have the impact that it did one generation ago. We saw that several days ago with Al Green's impeachment resolution on the House floor. Doesn't mean anything anymore because it's lost its currency.
You know, very quickly here, I always wondered that what saved Bill Clinton was the strong economy, the strong markets. And I don't think Richard Nixon was as lucky at the time. You know, the Senate and the House were circling the wagons around him. Now, I'm not saying that that's exclusively the case, but the backdrop is very similar. This president enjoying a strong economy and strong markets, and this notion that no matter what's revealed here, unless it's just off the charts, nothing's going to happen.
nothing is going to happen. The Democrats are going to do what they're going to do regardless of what happens tomorrow. They are going to keep these issues alive through the election. The president has marked out his territory, and he's not going to change his position one iota either.
All right, Congressman, we'll see how that all plays out. Thank you for taking the time.
Certainly.